In Medan, a vibrant city in Indonesia, a female Methodist pastor stepped up to the pulpit, ready to deliver one of the most significant sermons of her life. She had prepared meticulously, knowing that the topic would be controversial and evoke strong emotions. Her subject was the indoctrination of children through religion, an issue she felt deeply concerned about and was determined to address openly. Dear friends, she began with a warm but serious tone that reached every ear in the congregation. We often talk about how faith provides children with security, hope, and moral values. But we rarely discuss what happens when faith becomes a tool used to manipulate, restrict, and even control their thinking. This is not just a moral issue, it is a question of human rights. She paused, looking around, and continued. Have you ever stopped to think about why children are introduced to religious teachings from such a young age? Why do so many religious communities emphasize that a child must come to faith before they can even fully grasp what faith truly means? The reason is that a young mind is sensitive and impressionable. When a child hears the same teachings repeated over and over, they often adopt them without question because they trust the adults who are authorities in their lives. This is what we call indoctrination. The pastor shared an example from her own experience. When I was studying in Jakarta, at the educational institution on Drive Lachamentan Street, I witnessed many families stressing religious rituals and dogmas in a way that left little room for questioning. Children were raised to recite memorized mantras and sacred texts, but at the same time, they were denied the opportunity to ask, why is this true? When a child attempted to ask questions, they were often scolded and told that faith is not something to be questioned. Think about how this impacts a child's mind. They learn that their own thoughts are unimportant, that truth is always handed down from the outside and never discovered from within. She let her words linger in the air for a moment, allowing the gravity of the topic to sink in. Then she spoke even more directly about manipulation. Manipulation happens when we don't allow children to see alternatives. When a child is told they must believe something to save their soul or avoid eternal punishment, it is no longer teaching, it is using fear as a tool to control their thinking. How can we call this love if we use fear as a means of raising them? The pastor's voice wavered slightly as she spoke about the fragility of childhood. A child who grows up hearing that their questions are wrong, that their doubts are sinful, and that they must simply obey, quickly learns to hide their own thoughts. They don't learn critical thinking, they don't learn to question, and they don't learn to seek the truth for themselves. Instead, they learn to repeat what they are told, and this makes them easily manipulated as adults. This is not freedom, this is subjugation. She reminded her listeners that faith and truth cannot thrive on structures built out of fear. If religion is truth, why do we fear science? Why do we fear questions? If God is omniscient, isn't He also the source of knowledge? So why do we stop our children from exploring the world scientifically and critically if we believe that truth will endure all scrutiny? This fear is not the children's, it is ours. It is our insecurity that we are passing on to them. She spoke of guilt as another tool of manipulation. How often is a child told that they are sinful and need salvation? That they must ask for forgiveness for things they do not even fully understand? This teaches the child that they are inherently inadequate, that their worth depends on external approval. This is one of the deepest forms of manipulation because it leaves a mark that can last a lifetime. The pastor knew her words were heavy, but she was determined not to back down. I am not saying this to destroy faith, I am saying this because I believe. I believe that truth is stronger than fear. I believe that God, if we believe in Him, wants us to question, to learn, and to understand. I do not believe that He wants us to manipulate our children into submission to ideas they have not been allowed to ponder. Finally, the pastor turned the discussion towards hope. We can change this. We can raise children who don't just believe what they are told but who know how to question, explore, and find truth for themselves. We can give them a gift that will last a lifetime, the freedom to think. The freedom to love truth without fear. Isn't that what we believe God wants for all of us? After the sermon, the church was enveloped in profound silence. People did not speak immediately, but their faces showed that the pastor's words had sparked deep thoughts. While not everyone might have agreed, it was clear she had opened the door to a conversation many had avoided. As she stepped down from the pulpit, The pastor knew she had fulfilled her calling, to plant a seed of thought and change.